So let's actually do some of this. The best way to try this stuff is just to do that, to carry out some stuff. Uh, you know, um, can't really do too much damage, I don't think. So I'll try to follow my own advice and do kind of the good practices or best practices. So one thing right off the bat is probably go ahead and save it. Okay. So I'm just going to call this Excel Fundamentals. Okay. And I'm on my own computer, so I'm saving to my desktop. Remember, if you're in a lab at Asbury, you can save it to your, what do they call it? It used to be called a V drive. I think it's called something else now. But your personal drive, or you can save it if you have a flash drive or something attached. If you just save it to a public desktop, most likely when you exit out of the computer, it's gone. So if for some reason you don't have access to your own drive, you could save it to the desktop or to documents, and then open up your email and email it to yourself. But again, it's nice if you're just working on your own computer. Okay, so I do that, and we see the name, the file name up here. So the way Excel is set up is you see one sheet at a time, and it's just given a generic name, sheet 1. If we go down here and double click or right click, we can rename this. So I may just call this basic skills. Okay. You don't have to do that, but if you open up a new sheet, then again it's just given a generic name. Okay. A couple other things here. I've made my font pretty big, although it's not. I could have blown it up other ways. So you can read it here. Probably you'll be working in more standard, 10 or 12 font. But again, I just did this so it helps readability. So a couple other good practices. One is a lot of times it's easy to get going on a project. You're just doing some calculations, and I still use Excel not just for this class. For I teach economics, so I want to come up with an example, and I'll just kind of use it as a scratch paper where I jump in and do some calculations if I don't have my calculator handy. And the nice thing there is you have a record, assuming you save it. Okay. Problem with that though is it's a lot of times confession time. Well, you don't put all the details in. You just start punching in formulas or numbers, and even if you save it, and you come back to it, it's probably pretty confusing. What was I doing here? What problem number? What was the you know whatever formula? Um, so a good idea, good practice is to use labels. Okay, so it's pretty obvious here. Yeah, we have a list of names, and it may not be obvious if we just saw numbers, but these are these made up anyway, starting salaries. Okay. So again, you could, we'll do a little bit of cosmetic stuff here. So if you click on B, the column, then we can center that. So I'll go up here, center text. Okay. And it does it for the whole thing. If we only wanted to do it for the numbers, we could have just highlighted them and done something, but we'll just keep the whole thing centered. And for name, I'll just make it a little bit, just put a colon there to make it a little bit more official looking. Okay. And then let's go, let's see here, got my script here. Let's go do a couple other cosmetic things here. So I'm going to highlight that whole area, and then we'll go to Format Cells. Okay. And I showed this in the previous section. So for the fill color, let's go ahead and do, I don't want anything too dark, something like that. And once you watch this, or as you're watching it even, I'd like you to follow along. If you use something slightly different, if you want to do a light pink instead of a light green, no problem. It's probably good though if you match up the columns and rows. That way we can, when we do some other stuff, we'll have the identical results. Okay. So I did outline inside. We'll click. You can change the border style, but we'll just leave it default. Okay. And that way, see, it's a little hard to see there, but we actually have um, the full dimensions there. So let me actually make this a little bit bigger. So highlight that whole thing there. And go to 48, crazy man. Okay. So you see Excel sometimes doesn't do too well here. It's like, well, just what happened to all our values? Okay. Here I just grabbed up top there between the B and the C and drag this across here. Okay. As so. All right. That's wide enough for the numbers. But it's like, oh, this is messed up now. So it still says starting salary. So I just clicked on column B, row 1, the starting salary, format cell, and we will go to alignment and wrap text. Okay, you could do shrink to fit. It would make the font smaller, I believe. But we'll go ahead and wrap it. Okay. So far this isn't anything tremendously interesting or hard to do, but hopefully that's a good thing. You can see, oh yeah, I'm just putting stuff in. Yeah, a lot of the icons are very intuitive. Change the font color or the center, make it bold or something. Okay. So let's do a couple other things here. If we go to, I already looked at this, but we'll go to File, Page Setup. Okay, page. So let's go to fit 1 page wide by 1 page tall. And okay, that's good. Click OK. Now, we'll add a couple things here, but the real power of using a spreadsheet is that it's not like a Word document where I mean, there could be some structure to that, but it's not like a document where you basically just have things and they're all on the same page, literally. Here, things are broken up or identified by where they're at. So columns are letters, and it goes way out. After it runs through 26, you say what happens? Well, then they start doubling up. AA, AB. I think it goes out to at least 256 columns. It'd be pretty rare that you would need that much. And then the rows are numeric, 1 through, and it just keeps on going. So that is one important thing to keep in mind. Once we have some numbers in there, we don't need to retype, say, 20,000 again. We just use the cell identifier, which will always put the column first, the letter first, so it would be B2, all one sequence there. Okay. Okay. And we do that. So suppose we want to find out the total salaries. Okay. So I'll just type in total here. And on the assessment, you can actually read through what you're going to be doing on that. There's two things. One is a budget, personal budget, and the other one is finding someone's Social Security benefit, or a simplified version of that anyway. So when you do that, it might be tempting, oh, well, there's only 5 numbers. I'll just do that, on my calculator. Well, Excel's your calculator. And secondly, you say, well, I'll just, start just typing 20,000 plus 44,000 plus. Well, you could do that and you get the right answer. Well, assuming you typed it in right. A better way, though, is, oops, not A1, okay, is to do B2. Okay. And as I'm typing this, you can see, hopefully you can see the colors, the cells kind of light up. plus B6. Okay. I think so. Too wide. Okay. So it's $155,000. Maybe those are my 5 employees, and I'm like, what's total payroll for the year? 155,000. So that's one way to do it. And we'll leave that there, even though, let me show you a little trick here. I'll do this. You don't have to do it on yours, but anytime you put, I should have mentioned this, anytime you put an equal sign in Excel, Excel assumes and proceeds with the formula. So it says equals. Well, don't just write that. It's calling for a calculation. So I wanted to add those 5 values together. If for some reason, and here it's because I want you to see the formula, if you put a single apostrophe or single quote mark, then it will write it out in as text. Okay. Right, so now it's just text. We don't want that though. One other trick, and we'll use this quite a bit here. If you have something and you drag it, okay, then it's basically a shortcut way to copy and paste. And I could have just retyped that, but that saved me 10 seconds of my life. Okay, I'll take the apostrophe off. So, okay. So if you want to do this, this may be a good way too to be, okay, this is what he did here. All right, another way to do this, and this is another very important part of Excel, is, well, Bill Gates, okay, and his engineering staff or software programmers, they've built in a lot of functionality. So a lot of times you may just use something like this plus this, but and that's fine if we only have 5 numbers. It just takes 20 seconds or something to type that in. But what if we had 100 people and their salaries? So then it would be, equals, it would be kind of tiring. It'd probably take 10 minutes, which isn't terrible, but we can make a mistake or what have you. And what if we had 10,000? Well, at that point, probably it would be like, wait, there has to be some technology, and there is. So a big part of Excel is using functions, which are, there's hundreds, if not thousands, which sounds, oh, that's terrible, but the ones we probably use, a couple dozen, and that covers a lot. And then there's some variations. I've never used sum x2 my2. Okay, maybe adding and summing 2 different columns. Here we just take the sum, and then it'll tell you. We could go ahead and write them all out, but if you do a range, so B2 to B6, same answer. Just here. And again, there's nothing Excel. In fact, you really don't want to have all your commands floating around once you have your finished product, but this is my teaching version of it, so what have you. So that's a very popular one. There's some other ones. Let me just list some other popular commands. And all right, so doesn't matter if you do caps or not. So there's the average. Okay, so we could find the average salary over that range. We could find the maximum, find the minimum. You can say, well, I can just look at that here. I can see the minimum is 20,000. Okay, but if you had 5,000 employees or data points, you wouldn't want to have to scroll through that and try to find that needle in the haystack minimum. Okay. There's others, a lot of statistical ones. You could find the mode, which is the most popular value. Here, there's no ties. Okay. The median, the 50th percentile value. And then you can do other stuff. You do stuff like take the absolute value. you could find, okay, so that gives you a sample, and throughout the course, we'll probably each week I'll introduce, I guess you should say, a few other commands that we'll use that are appropriate for that section. Okay, I'm going to stop here, come back, and talk more about how Excel can really be a great advantage to us in numerical analysis.